We hope you're doing well. We hope everybody that has COVID out there today is doing well. Boy, a lot of people that have COVID. Symptoms seem to be very mild, but was going to get together yesterday afternoon with a friend, and his 14-year-old daughter got it, and it's still going around. It's not, again, for people that have vaccines that are boosted, it seems to be very mild from everything I've heard.
It is, but then there are other people here who are laid up for a week and 10 days, like it was 2 years ago. So it's not to be messed with.
Yeah. So that's the news on the COVID front, and Anthony Fauci has COVID. Another pandemic news: they renamed monkeypox because they said the name was racist. Joining us now, former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner. Steve, I want to ask you about that. What I will do, though,
I had COVID.
Did you really?
In
How
December.
was it for you?
It was uneventful.
Are you okay, Steve?
I am absolutely okay. It was uneventful. I thought I only had a cold, but fortunately we test in the office once a week.
Yeah.
It turned out I had COVID, but it was a bad cold.
Bad cold. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm trying to figure out, Mika. Do you think that one time I had COVID? We're trying to figure out whether I had COVID or not. So
I know.
I hardly ever. I just don't get sick.
You were so sick.
There's some wood to knock on.
There was this 1 week that Joe was so sick, and then I got it, but we tested nothing.
Nothing. But it was just like this. I was washing my hand. Suddenly, like chills came up for me. I just flew. It was literally, I got hit just like that.
I had to carry him.
Did you lay out?
What's that?
Did you lay down for a couple days? I think you had COVID.
Yeah, a couple days. But the chills were violent, and I'm telling you, it was out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Did all the tests. Ended up that I had whatever they call monkeypox now.
Whatever it is now.
No. So, Joe, I do think
I was joking about that a decade ago. Yes, ma'am?
Joe, I think that there is maybe something to be said for the fact, and I'm especially the queen of wearing a mask. I think I should wear a mask for practically everything now. Doing the show, no. But, I wear a mask when I travel, and I think we all have been so separated and we've been so careful in masking. I wonder if just getting out into the world again, we're catching just normal viruses. I wonder if there's something to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is something to that. I also think, though, that, again, the lesson of China is if you have a zero COVID tolerance policy, what you're going to do is drive down everybody's resistance. And when they do get back out in the world, at some point, they're all going to get sick. So I think we're doing pretty well. I mean, I think everybody should wear, I'll tell you, when I go into a store and somebody's wearing a mask, if it's an older person, I usually have one on. I'll put it on out of courtesy when I'm getting on and off of planes. They say when everybody's packed in, that's a smart time to do that. But other than that, I mean, we have built, as Scott Gottlieb said, we've built a huge wall of resistance in this country.
The U.S. is pledging additional support for the country. President Joe Biden announced yesterday another $1 billion in military aid. This new package will include anti-ship missile launchers, howitzers, and more rounds of high-mobility artillery rocket systems. Biden's pledge came during a phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. During that call, Biden also said the U.S. will send an additional $225 million in humanitarian assistance to address issues such as safe drinking water, critical medical supplies, and food. Ukrainian officials have been pleading for weeks for more advanced weapons to stop the advance of Russian forces in eastern Ukraine. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said yesterday the U.S. is moving as fast as possible to get the critical weapons on the ground. This, as the French president, the German chancellor, and the Italian premier arrived in Kyiv this morning. The leaders are expected to meet with President Zelensky in Kyiv as they prepare for a key European Union leaders summit in Brussels next week. And this is huge. I mean, so symbolic on so many levels, Caddy, but also the European Union has a lot of decisions to make in terms of energy dependence and how far they want to go with sanctions. And this type of unity probably is very, very hopeful for Volodymyr Zelensky.
There are several culprits. There's Biden and what he's done, and it's not irrelevant, but it's not.
And what is that?
Well, that is all the spending, basically.
Yeah, the
American Rescue Plan,
the relief
the $1,400 checks, the $2 trillion that you and I have talked about a lot that's on the sidelines. Half of that's government money that we gave people to spend, and now they're trying to spend it, so you get inflation.
Yeah.
And as we talked about the other day, left to its own devices, the administration would have proposed another $4 trillion of programs with taxes, but nonetheless, they still would have had. But that's one issue.
Steve Ratner right there, who's running for Secretary of Treasury to replace Janet Yellen, sounds like the war room. But he said, who's the culprit? He said, Biden administration, American Recovery Act. And he said exactly what he said. The money's sitting on the sidelines. That's what's been driving up the cost. One of the reasons driving up costs, all their other policies, is a creative crisis. We wanted to show you this morning of how they're trying to fall back and make COVID something else again. Done, over. Right, finished. Everything they said there was wrong about the Chinese, it's just redonkulous. But then they get into the meat of the subject. Wall Street Journal's got a major piece out today about how the sanctions failed. The sanctions have actually sanctioned Western Europe. You got all these leaders of the EU all hanging out with Zelensky, the promoter today. Of course, Biden's, being the simp he is, sends another $1 billion over on top of the $40 billion we sent. Just a disgrace. We've got a lot to get through, the politics of it, the geopolitics of it, the finance, the capital markets. But I want to go to Illinois, right? We got Darren Bailey and we've got our own Steve Cortes. Steve, market's been in meltdown all day, as you said they were going to. And the Wall Street Journal's got a big piece about the Ukrainian sanctions, as you and I talked about even before they were put in, and how they're going to blow back on the West. However, sir, Trafalgar's got a poll that says the Cortes factor out in Illinois is on fire, but your best friend, your bestie, Karl Rove, is not happy. Tell me about the Wall Street Journal. Where are you? Who are you with? What are you guys doing? And tell me why Karl Rove is upset about this.
Yeah, so as you can tell, I'm on the bus, and perhaps you can see in the background the beautiful Illinois countryside rolling by. We are in north central Illinois near, we just left Magnolia. We've been doing a bus tour all over. Is going to all 102 counties of Illinois in a 2-week period, and we're meeting people in town halls. People are incredibly fired up. The deplorables, the war room posse is out in force all over Illinois. Karl Rove is not happy about it because he wants the establishment candidate in this GOP primary, a man named Richard Irvin, who is neither a conservative nor a Republican. He's a radical Democrat. The only reason Richard Irvin got any traction at all is because Ken Griffin, who is the wealthiest man in Illinois, who is a hedge fund mogul and oligarch, he thought he could buy this primary. So he put $50 million, really an astounding sum for a primary, $50 million and Richard Irvin to try to fool of Illinois into believing that he was a Republican or a conservative when he is neither. Thankfully, according to this latest Trafalgar poll, the people, deplorables, are soundingly rejecting and repelling that really dirty attempt by Ken Griffin, Kenny G, as I refer to him. Darren Bailey right now, according to Trafalgar, which is one of the most accurate polling companies in America, Darren Bailey is up 17% in this race. So Karl Rove is not happy about that, but we wear his scorn as a badge of honor because Karl Rove has been wrong about every single policy, including the one you mentioned. He has been one of the foremost advocates of escalation in Ukraine and all of the disastrous geopolitical as well as economic fallout from escalating that crisis in Ukraine. And also, when we look at Karl Rove, let's just be very honest about who he is and what his track record is. He hasn't won a race since 2004, okay? He has wasted fortunes of donor money. He has made himself generationally wealthy while wasting their money. But his track record, both on policy as well as politics, as well as the races that he has become involved in, his record is disastrous. So he's out in the Wall Street Journal hammering this man who I have right next to me. And, I'd like you to talk to him, Steve, and hear it from the horse's mouth from Darren Bailey. Karl Rove,
hang on. Before I go to Darren, I just got to ask you a question. I want to ask you a couple about this pieces. Karl Rove says the problem he has, Brother Cortes, is that Darren Bailey is a fringe candidate. He says he's trying to say, look, we got to win races in November, and Darren Bailey is he's the heart of these fringe candidates throughout the country, and the fringe candidates believe stuff like a wall ought to be built, fentanyl ought to be stopped, we ought to ban abortions. I went through the top 10 MAGA list, and Karl Rove says Darren Bailey's fringe. these ideas are dangerous and you can't win general election. I think he also said, you don't want to do DACA, we got to get Hispanics by saying open borders, immigration, all that. Karl Rove went through the entire Bush playbook and categorized these as fringe candidates. What do you say about that, Steve Cortes?
Well, yeah, again, if you subscribe to the worldview of Karl Rove, okay, then is Steve Cortes fringe? Guilty as charged, right? I will gladly plead guilty to that from his worldview. But we are not fringe candidates. These are Darren Bailey's not a fringe candidate. I'm not a fringe political operative and campaigner. These are ideals that the vast majority of Americans believe in. Things like sovereignty, things like Illinois no longer being a so-called sanctuary state, because it's not sanctuary for law enforcement. It's not sanctuary for the citizens of Illinois when we allow knowingly dangerous illegal aliens to hide in plain sight in the state of Illinois. You're not a fringe candidate when you say that the inflationary policies of Joe Biden in Washington and J.B. Pritzker here in Illinois are crushing regular Illinois citizens. And by the way, when Karl Rove says that you can't win with these kinds of positions, he should look just a bit south within his own state. He lives in Austin. He's probably far more comfortable in Austin than the rest of Texas. But he should look just south of Austin to what Mayra Flores just did, right? In an 84% Latino district, what did she run on primarily? Pro-life and pro-border. Those were by far the two biggest pillars of her agenda, of her campaign, and she just won a historic vote there. So I reject totally the idea that strong America First, patriotic, populist conservatives, that they can't win. Can win, and even in places which have been considered safe for the Democrats. A place like Illinois. I'll give you another example. Right here in Illinois, Joe Biden began his term with tremendous support within the land of Lincoln. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. He had 57% approval, according to Civics polling, only 34% disapprove. That has completely flipped now, Steve. He was plus 23 at the beginning of his term. Not even a year and a half in, he is now minus 8 in the state of Illinois. In dependably Democratic Illinois, he is 41-49 approve, disapprove. Why? Because of inflation. So, Steve, that tells me that every state, every jurisdiction in this country is in play because of this inflation. And I believe that Illinois can be won not just by a Republican, but by a real America First fighter, a stalwart Republican, and that's who Darren Bailey is.
Let me talk to Darren. Darren, this question is for you. I want to go back to the Karl Rove on Steve's comment. Karl Rove said, "Look, the Darren Baileys of the world are interesting to the small hamlets, the small towns, the rural, the kind of the Shire. The Darren Bailey is a candidate of the Shire, but in a place like Illinois, where you got to go win big cities, particularly Chirac, you got to go to Chicago and win, and particularly in the suburbs. Darren Bailey scares the mythical swing voter." The swing voter. I think Karl Rove's talking from a land that time forgot, but he calls them swing voters. What say you, Darren Bailey? Are you just a candidate of the Shire, or can you speak for all Illinois?
I'm speaking for all of Illinois. Illinois is ready to return to the principles of this Constitution. So I guess my question to Karl Rove is, does he think our Constitution, this beautiful document that ensures our freedom, is indeed a far right fringe element document? That's what we're drifting from. That's what we're missing out on. The people of Illinois, for over 2 years now, I've been able to travel this great state ever since I sued Governor Pritzker. They are into this nonsense, and after this summer, freedom's coming to Illinois.
I think he says, I don't know if Karl Rove has a problem with the Constitution. His point is it's not relevant in a race like this. In a race like this, you need someone like Ken Griffin, who's going to put in $40 million and obviously give Karl Rove a piece of that so he could be a mouthpiece. And what's important is to have a guy who has a profile, a guy who can put money into a major TV market, that bootstrap grassroots candidates like you that support the Constitution and support the rule of law are nice and quaint, but essentially at the end of the day, particularly in November, be irrelevant. What do you say, sir?
No, absolutely not. When we go through I think, an unforgettable summer of high energy prices, blackouts, brownouts, high fuel prices, probably the lack of high food prices, probably the lack of that, all of these being man-made by the Democrat Party, Thank you, Joe Biden and Governor Pritzker. People of Illinois are going to be ready for a change if conservative-minded Republicans stand up and get that message out. And I will tell you, that has been the problem. Far too long, people in Illinois, Republican leaders, have failed to stand up for the people. They've compromised their ideas and ideals, and that's what's destroying our freedoms right here. And that is why the people of Illinois are finding favor with our campaign.
Let me ask you, Darren, Karl Rove. Go back to the Karl Rove piece. He describes Mr. Irvin as a stalwart conservative and backed by a free markets practitioner in Ken Griffin, who's put $40 or $50 million in back of this. What say you, sir, about Irvin as a conservative? Okay, let's go ahead and reboot that. Let's go ahead and drop it. Hey, Boris, we had to redrop because they're going across Illinois, north central Illinois, and just lost the signal, as often happens. Boris, tell me about Karl Rove. You've got a lot of experience, and President Trump knows Karl Rove. Tell me about your assessment of Karl Rove, particularly this piece in the Wall Street Journal today.
Karl Rove is somebody who has no understanding of what the Republican MAGA electorate is, of what the MAGA movement is, or where we are as a country. He's a dinosaur, and he's a dinosaur who's fighting for relevance so hard. I mean, he did all he could to attack Governor Greitens, did all he could to go after MAGA candidates all across the country. And now, he's attacking, Bailey in Illinois, and attacking MAGA and President Trump over and over again. But Karl Rove's the same guy who thought that President Trump wouldn't win in 2016. He has no understanding of American politics. And by the way, yes, George Bush barely, obviously, won that election in 2000. And then in 2004, George Bush, during wartime, as a sitting president, barely beat somebody who's effectively a bronze statue in John Kerry. So this whole notion of Karl Rove, aka
Hold it. Let's first off, they lost in 2000 and cheated. Okay, they lost in 2000 and cheated. Karl Rove, the genius, and it was 100,000 patriots in Southern Ohio, deplorables. Karl Rove was bailed out by essentially what became Trump voters, or Trump voters at the time that didn't have another option. There's 100,000 voters in Southern Ohio, the heart of Trump country, that bailed out KarlOve, and quite frankly, the votes in Florida,
aka Alabama, right?
Alabama, hold it, and you get to know this country pretty well, Boris, for an immigrant. The corridor in I-4 corridor. I-4 corridor.
I'm sorry.
The Bushes were always bailed out.
20s and 30s at Goldman Sachs.
Whoa! Boom! Back to Rove, though. Let's get. This guy is a genius. When is the last time you heard the term about anybody that's a pro in this business today? Swing voters. What's a swing voter? A swing voter is not even a concept people use today.
Northeast Pennsylvania soccer moms. It's the same stuff they've been pushing to you, for 20 years.
The yuppies. They're looking for yuppies. Who get yuppies? No.
Yeah. It's a joke. This outdated analysis of the American public is a joke, and we're seeing it in Texas, we're seeing it in Arizona, we're seeing it in California, we're seeing it, of course, Florida. Karl Rove didn't win Florida. Let's be honest. In 2000, right? He could thank the Supreme Court as Sandra Day O'Connor for that one. And he barely won.
Hold it. He can thank James Baker, a damn good and tough lawyer that got in there and got it to the right venue. Correct? James Baker is a killer, total killer. He got it done. That's how they got the victory in 2000. But he also has. But hold on. He's got
seconds on that real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
10 seconds. When I'm trying to, look at Florida and Ohio in the 2000s, where it was at best purple, and now Florida and Ohio are MAGA red. So if you tell me that the thinking from the 2000s applies to now, it's 1,000% wrong. President Trump changed this country forever. Florida and Ohio are MAGA red forever, and we're going all across the country to make it all MAGA red.
People have to read this article by Karl Rove because he essentially goes after core things like build the wall, Remember, the people in the Rio Grande Valley are telling you they not only want a wall, they want border security and real security, not the happy talk of the Bush apparatus. Listen, the reason Texas is all messed up today is the Bush apparatus. They're open borders. The Bushes are the worst. Amnesty. They want amnesty. Their whole program would have driven Hispanics away. This is why we're going to get 50, 55 or 60% of the Hispanics, because culturally conservative and economically populist and nationalist. Look,
no doubt.
The Bushes are also guys, the Bush apparatus and Karl Rove, they'll look the other way. They are the controlled opposition. All Karl Rove is interested in is making money and cash out. Anybody that's watching on Fox,
and
anybody
China,
watching Fox, I don't understand what you're. Oh, they're 100% in business with CCP. They kowtow. They're controlled opposition. But here's the thing. Karl Rove's popping up everywhere. He's popping up in Missouri. He's in back of all these smear campaigns on Eric Greitens. They can't take Greitens on the issues.
Terribly done. Like, terribly executed.
Talk to people
just
about that.
The comms guy. I mean, these are just sloppy. You know, oh, I'm going to call somebody and I've got this information. And then it all falls apart. And if you're the comms operative who then is exposed for doing it, which Karl Rove was, it's sloppy. And let me ask you, here's an honest question, and I actually would like an answer. I think Karl Rove's somebody who's grifted a lot and done pretty well, has got a good amount of money. What is he trying to play operative for at this point? Just it feels that irrelevant. Is he just that hateful himself when he looks in the mirror?
He wants to be a player. He wants to be a player. He wants to. That's why he goes on Fox. Well, this is why Fox brings out the retreads. Remember, Ailes was a Bush guy. He supported, as much as I love Roger Ailes, he was a Jeb Bush guy and a Marco guy. He ran. He was very involved in the Bush campaign. He was a relatively junior guy on Reagan, but he was very involved made some great spots for Reagan. He was very involved in the Bush 41. He's always been, Fox went out of their way to promote, listen, let's be blunt. Let's be very brutally blunt. They were the big, Hannity, those guys were pom-poms and cheerleaders out for the Iraq War. All the lies and misrepresentation you bought in the Iraq War, that was all served up hot every night on Fox News with Roger Ailes, Old Man Murdoch, and, of course, Karl Rove sitting there lying to you every day. So look at the combat dead we've got. Look at the casualties we've got. Look at the $9 trillion we spent in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's all courtesy of Karl Rove and the Bush apparatus, which, here's the other thing, they don't have anything to do. Since the grandson, or whoever that weakling was, got blown out by Ken Paxton. Look, I love Ken Paxton, but it's not like you're going up against Trump or John F. Kennedy or Ronald Reagan, right? I mean, Ken Paxton was a 30-point win, 40-point win. I mean, Ken Paxton went full beast mode.
Beast mode.
That shows you, it shows you about the people that know him best can't stand him. They're supposed to be so powerful in Texas. How come the boy George P. Bush,
and by the way,
named after the old man,
Karl Rove operation? Karl Rove was all in on that himself. Again, it's almost as if you've got Gordie Howe, rest his soul, right? Played back into his 70s. Okay, 55 and later when he was like with the Hartford Whalers and all that, it was just too late. Okay, Karl Rove, you never really had a time, but whatever your time was has long passed. It's time to retire, my man. Okay. Just go away. Stop writing nonsense. I don't want to hear about the soccer moms and the swing voters. Don't exist.
Hold on. No, soccer moms. Yeah, hold it. Soccer moms. I'm going to bring up one on. This is what Karl Rove. This is strategery. Texas is suing guys. Ken Paxton's in about mass vaccine, critical race theory, social emotional learning, the border. Ken Paxton's got 200 lawsuits against the Bush administration. Chop block him anywhere. He gets
the Biden administration.
The Bush boy to go on TV. Biden gets the Biden administration. He gets the Bush boy to go out there and says, I think one of the big problems is Ken Paxton's got too many lawsuits against Biden. We got to work together.
That's
hold it. You got people in Texas. Like you got Texas Republican. Primary voters are the most rabid dudes in the country, right? Oh, we're suing the Biden administration too much. We get poor Ken Paxton in the war room. Go, how come why are there not more lawsuits? Why are you not arresting federal officials?
They sat around and they go, you know what we ought to do? We ought to, in this 2022 red hot primary, we ought to tack to the middle. We really, that's where the lane is.
No,
it's the middle. Yeah.
We got to show that. We have to cross the.
The Wall Street Journal is putting this nonsense out You're right. Fox News is putting it on air, and there's a swath of America. It's a dwindling swath that still reads it and thinks, oh well, there's a little impact on that. But you know what? That's the old establishment. That's the controlled opposition. MAGA and President Trump are in control. And hey, the War Room posse is so much greater than any of that nonsense.
Here's what'll get you: a 70-30 ticket non-punched in a primary in Texas. How can a Bush run in a Texas primary and not get 40-50% of the vote just with the name?
It was like that Mike Tyson fight with McGreevy. It's like one of the first fight when Tyson got out of jail. It's like, whoa, somebody just got blown out. Don't be picking off my McGreevy. Okay. We're going to take a short commercial break. Boris got a lot of stuff to go through. We got the Ukraine, the economy, plus the Atlantic today. The Atlantic magazine, where they had the American Rasputin piece, came out today with one of their major writers. And the headline is, it's time for Biden to go. Biden should not run in 2024. The Atlantic has basically, not just a lame duck, turned Biden into a dead duck. We're going to talk about the polling. We're going to talk about the analysis, what's going on geopolitically over in the Ukraine. I got Boris Epshteyn. We're going to break it all down for you next in the War Room.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
These are the hands of a farmer, strong and determined. A grandfather's hands, supportive and caring. Hands of a state senator who protects life and our freedoms. I know something about this man, Darren Bailey, because I joined him to restore Illinois' greatness. Together, we'll cut taxes, fund the police, and impose term limits. Join us, the only true conservative Republican team, and let's put Illinois' future in these safe hands.
Okay, welcome back to the War Room. We've got the bus to slow down just for a second. Thanks to Steve Cortes. I want to go back to Darren Bailey. Darren, let me posit Karl Rove's theory of the case with that ad. That ad's going to get people to tear up. That ad's going to say, that is Americana. People are going to say, wow, that's like Morning in America with Ronald Reagan. But Karl Rove says that's exactly your problem. You can win in the hamlets. You can win in the Shire. You can win in the small villages of Illinois, which they love you. But you go to the big city, you got to be able to play in the suburbs, and you got to be able to play in the big cities up north. And they're going to look at you as a country bumpkin. Sir, your response.
And that's exactly what I love and anticipate so much for. We have been up in Chicago and the suburbs for the past 2 years, and people are fed up with what's going on. They're ready for something real, and we bring that to them. So November 8th is going to be an amazing day for this state and ultimately our country.
Just one last thing. We still got a slight connection problem, but I got to ask you. They say Irvin, the one part we didn't get before you dropped, they say Irvin, Karl Rove posits that he's the true conservative. What say you, sir?
I say this is people like Karl Rove are the people that are responsible for destroying the freedoms, destroying the constitutional republic. There is absolutely nothing Republican or conservative about Richard Irvin. The proof exists with his service as mayor. And this man is a disaster. It is the Republican establishment of the state of Illinois that are buying into that. And the only reason they're buying into that is so that they can stay in power with their own little monopoly of what they're enjoying here in Illinois. But it is costing us our republic, and it is costing us our freedom. It is costing us our state, and I won't have it.
Well, last question. The Trafalgar poll, and Trafalgar is pretty good about polling, particularly in primaries and MAGA votes. They've got you up, I think, 17, coming out of nowhere. You've had $40 million spent against you. It's unheard of that this could happen. What is propelling your race right now? What is galvanizing people to come to your cause?
So that video that you saw, there's nothing, there's nothing played upon that. That is the real thing. That's the real me. That's the people that the state of Illinois have grown to learn and to know over the last 2 years. They finally tapped in and beginning to understand that there is someone out there that holds true to these morals and these beliefs of freedom, that we can indeed live up to these God-honored principles of our Constitution, and that we will. I think people are really realizing they want to get back to their roots, because taxes are driving them out of our state. Our education system has failed in Illinois, and now lawlessness is ruling the day. And people are realizing that. I've been standing up and speaking against that from the beginning.
You know, people, particularly some of the MAGA people, have given up on Illinois overall because, you know, we continue to lose there by big margins. As Steve Cortes said at the beginning of Biden's regime, it was 57-33. It's now upside down. Do you believe that you could be the leader in turning this around in 22 and actually position this that Illinois is in play in 2024 for Donald Trump?
I do, sir. I believe that we will take I believe we can take the majority in the House. And then the most important aspect of all of this is that a governor who actually gets elected, a Republican governor, actually goes to work and gets something done. Being a state representative for 2 years and a senator for 2 years, I certainly possess that ability other than being a no-nonsense farmer. And then I think when Illinois sees something happening that's never happened before, we will take the Senate in 24 and we will roll out the red carpet for a potential President Trump if he so. And I told him that in December when I visited with him. Illinois can and will be the catalyst of change to this great nation.
Darren Bailey, thank you very much. How do people get to you, find out more about you, and how do they find out about your campaign?
BaileyForIllinois.com, and most importantly, our Facebook page, Darren Bailey for Governor. I'm on there every day. If they want to find out why this movement is growing as it is, get on our Facebook page, join this movement, and see what we're doing, and they'll understand very quickly why the people of Illinois are gravitating towards this movement.
I also want Captain Bannon to put at Steve. That's Steve Cortes. Steve Cortes putting stuff all the time. I also want to call Senior Getter Management and find out how in the hell Cortes got at Steve. And I'm just simple Steve. I'm just another Schmendrick. I'm at Steve Bannon. No,
you gotta
Cortes.
Be a baller.
One less.
You got to be a baller to get.
I'm saying
your first name only, right? I'm like Bono. I'm known by one name.
Cortes, I got to tell you, brother, this Illinois thing's a different deal. I mean, first, let's be blunt. It's a state that money matters. Pritzker, who's a complete doofus, is going to run for president off of all the money he spent, you know, buying himself a couple of terms there as Illinois governor, being a disaster. He's not going to try to go buy a place in on the stage of democracy. Ken Griffin just thought he'd sit up there in Chicago and start writing checks. This thing was done. What you guys have done, and this is the power, I think, not just of the war room, but Getter. People are thirsty. The people in Illinois, it's a huge, massive state. There are tons of MAGA out there. You just got to take the message to them. And Darren Bailey's, he's fearless. 102 counties. That's getting it done. So Cortes, thank you so much. Steve, give your social media survey because I know you're up there nonstop on Getter Live, driving this campaign.
You bet. And actually, I have a Getter Live tomorrow on the economy, so please join me for that, folks. I'm at Steve, as mentioned previously. I am still on Twitter for now, at Cortes, Steve Cortes with an S. But, yeah, please follow me. And Steve, we're making a real difference here on the ground. Believe me, there is a populist revolt in this country. People are incredibly fired up. The deplorables are informed and motivated, and a huge part of it is because of War Room. It is mentioned endlessly all across Illinois, your show.
You tell the folks out there and want everybody watching and listening or seeing the stream or on the podcast in Illinois, make sure you get out to a Bailey event, go on his site, check it out, and make sure you walk up to Cortes, say, hey, you see him on the War Room, and Bannon's handsomer, right? Bannon's in better shape.
Right.
Go full beast mode on Cortes. Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Boris, I want to get your thing. Boris, there's been a major, and the Democrats understand this. I want to ask you as a strategist. The Democrats gave up on the rural because they said this is just nothing but a bunch of white crackers. They forgot about all the Hispanics rural. They're conservative. And now we're so dominant in rural and ex-urban areas that it's meaningful. I mean, it's in play. What do you think strategically that the Roves and particularly the Democrats don't get about the great hinterland of this country? I mean, remember when you saw in 16, when you see that map of Trump, it's virtually all red except for some coastal areas. Obviously the big metropolitan, big urban areas, big cities, New York, Chicago, and then every university town, Charlottesville, Madison, Ann Arbor, Austin, right around there. But what about the Democrats strategically giving up on ex-urban and rural America?
Steve, I would love to tell you that they're sitting around and they had this big meeting with the Podestas and Anita Dunn and and the others, and they quote unquote strategically gave up on rural America. I think they're just dumb. And rural America may not have a Twitter account, so they're not part of AOC's Twitter following. So they just think, oh, well, it doesn't matter, and let's go talk about dudes on women's swim teams and how we should be talking to our 5 and 6 year olds about gender change and whatever that is, right? That's what I think happened. I think the Democrats and the woke libs, they marginalize themselves so much that the Hispanic Americans, the African Americans who love this country, who love God, who believe in some notion of traditional family, they've completely turned away from the left, and they're going to continue to do so. So I would posit that it has not been a strategic change from let's go away from the rural to some part of the urban, even though not much. I think it's just utter and complete stupidity, and it's a total lack of direction. And I've been beating this drum, and I'm proud to do so for a long time. I think 15 years I've been writing about, what do Democrats really stand for? And they've never truly had a definition, and now they may. But now their definition is that they stand for outside of the mainstream social views. They stand for high inflation. They stand for a lack of border. And they stand for what President Trump's talked about, which is turning this country into Venezuela, which he predicted they would do. And it's exactly what they're trying to do.
I want to ask you two things about Illinois, because you've been a big proponent, California, Illinois, even New York.
New York.
You were there. I did the event last night with you guys. You should not give up on these big states. These big states have tons. Illinois has more MAGA voters than most MAGA red states. California's got more MAGA voters than any other state in the union, including Florida and Texas. New York State's probably got more MAGA voters than most of these states. You shouldn't give up on it. But I want to go back to the math, and I want to ask you, because you brought up, you were the first guy to question what went down in Georgia, and now we're seeing stories. Another story today about Madison Cawthorn in the Washington Post, not Gateway Pundit, not Citizens Free Press, talking about how Democrats strategically are crossing over to try to beat some of these MAGA candidates. You were the first guy to mention, hey, I don't understand how Raffensperger never got below 50% any time in the evening, and I don't understand how MTG's district, right, which let's say is a tad conservative, she won by 50 points. He's up by 20 or 25. You don't understand how that works. Let's go to Illinois. 57-33 is a big spread, right? 57 on Inauguration Day, it's 57% approval for Biden, 33% disapproval. It's now upside down. He's 41% approval, almost in the 30s, brother. That tracks the country, but also there's something fishy here. Even a guy, because if you take independents, he's down in low 30s, because this got still all the Democrats in Chicago to get to the 41%. He's in the low 30s, high 20s right now. Is it mathematically possible that he had that percentage, or he had those votes in November of 2020? It's just mathematically impossible. The bottom could not have fallen out. Look, they had a thing the other day on approval on the economy, the IBD tip, which is a pretty good poll about economics. Boris, the whole country was 25% approval. All Americans were 25% approval on its economic policies, 15% among independents, 15%. Is it just that my point is he didn't have buy-in from 81 million voters. No. 81 million voters would not have quit that early on a guy, even as hapless as they are. You agree? I want you to walk me through that, particularly your professional polling.
I'll tell you something else. Being at 57-33 or whatever in Illinois, an election day actually doesn't connote 81 either. You'd have to be like you have to be at 70 to get to 81 million vote. So I think you could actually go earlier and go pretty much from Inauguration Day, and then how quickly the bottom fell out. I mean, Steve, May of last year, or a little over a year from now, we were already talking about dipping into the 30s with independents and the 20s, and now barely double digits going down into the singles. There is no way on God's green earth that Joe Biden got 81 million votes. Okay, if anybody believes that, this isn't me, metaphor and bombastic. If anybody believes that, reach out to me. BorisCP.com is the website. Send me a note. And I'm going to be proud to sell you beautiful skyscrapers in New York City, in Chicago, in LA, and I'll throw in some bridges. Okay? There's just no way. The numbers do not approve. The numbers show that Joe Biden maybe squeaked into the 60s, 60 million votes, and President Trump was in the 80s. There is absolutely no way numerically with the way that Biden's approval has skyrocketed and his approval has plummeted and disapproval skyrocketed. His approval plummeted and disapproval skyrocketed. That he got 81 million votes, because if you got 81 million votes, you could at least hang on to 50% for 6 months, a year, 18 months. You couldn't hang into it for a couple of months. And then he was upside down by the time that August of his first year came. And that's it. And now you got the Atlantic writing articles how Joe Biden shouldn't run again. I mean, this is the Atlantic. You had New York Magazine hold a 10-pager on it.
10-pager. I want to get to this right now.
It's kind of cool,
and I want you to explain to the audience. Atlantic they just wrote the American Rasputin piece on me, but they are the railhead of thinking in the progressive left of the globalist. Okay, they're kind of the magazine version, and you see them on MSNBC all the time. Particularly see them on Rachel Maddow on the nighttime shows and Morning Joe, which is the conventional wisdom. This guy Mark Leibovitz wrote the book about the green room. I mean, this is probably the most dialed in guy media wise and what's current in among magazine or feature writers.
You agree? Me of taking a nap at CNN's green room. Is that the same guy? Is he the guy
this would be the same guy. This is a very accurate reporter. Because I got called a couple times.
10 seconds on that.
Boris is asleep.
Real quick. When you do 10 hits a day, starting at 5 a.m. and your last one is at midnight, yes, there's a couch in the green room and you may take a little snooze for 2 minutes to rest, okay?
Hold on, hang on. It's not that you were there from 5 a.m. to 10 at night or 11 at night, whenever the broadcast ended. If you remember, Boris would go in as our surrogate and he would be just rocks. They would be attacking nonstop. I mean, throwing the women, Trump, all this. Boris, totally immovable. I mean, such the fact that they wanted to remove him by police escort. So these weren't easy hits. They're not saying, hey, Boris, what's happening? Tell me where Trump is today. Right. This was 14 hours of full on assault. A guy deserves to get on the couch, but we only got a few minutes. Got about 5 minutes. Okay. I need you to go through Leibovitz. He's dialed in. He's a player. So when he's writing something like this, he's talked to a lot of people, and the piece about that, this is an argument from the intelligentsia and other operatives that Biden's got to go. I mean, this is not your lame duck in November this year. This is your dead duck now, Boris.
No doubt about it. And the Atlantic is undoubtedly you're the railhead of the modern woke left. And hey, they're undoubtedly in love with this show. And now weeks past, I'll tell you that Jennifer Senior article about you, the American Rasputin, is as heated and poignant of a love letter from a woke far left liberal to a national populist as one could imagine. I mean, the pouring out of that American Rasputin article and the pictures. They must be literally spending day and night over there talking about how impactful Steve Bannon is, because that's what the piece connoted. And I'm not just saying that because I'm proud to be a part of this show and proud to call you a friend. About Biden, New York Magazine does at least a 10-pager on this just about 2 weeks ago. Now the Atlantic does another about how Joe Biden is a dead duck, not a lame duck, a dead duck. And then they're talking about how there's nobody to take his place because Gavin Newsom has turned these people off. Maybe he's too white, maybe he's too male, whatever it may be. Gavin Newsom, even though in his own mind he's the next president, he has not been able to take that mantle. So they're looking at the governor of North Carolina, and they're looking at Pritzker in Illinois. They're half jokingly, I think, talking about Buttigieg and his paternity leave. They're not talking about Kamala Harris. I'll tell you that. That's for sure. The Democrats Daily
Beast is promoting Oprah. Look, Michelle Obama and Oprah got to be in the mix with Newsom.
Here's the one that none of them are talking about, but the only one that's real. Okay, hear me now and hear me clear. Okay, there's only one person that any of you have to think about, libs, and her name is Hillary Crooked Rodham Clinton. Okay, Crooked Hillary is 1,000% hanging out there She's making the comeback. She's got the hairdo up right now. She's going to events in New York. That's who you've got to be looking at, okay? And I cannot wait for that matchup. A rematch. Donald J. Trump versus Crooked is exactly what we want, and I think there's a high likelihood of it. Because right now, Joe Biden, there's a moment in there, but it seemed like Joe Biden may make it through and be the nominee. But right now, no. If I had to put my money on it, I think Crooked Hillary is the most likely Democrat nominee for president in 2024. And as we hope and expect, President Trump is going to take her on and crush her and walk into the White House at the latest, January 20, 2025.
Hey, this is, by the way, Crooked is up in the, as we say, she's in the bullpen limbering up. She's just waiting for the call. She's just waiting for the call. Hey, trust me, she's doing Pilates. She's doing a couple of biceps. She's doing a couple spin classes. She's on Pilates. It's like Nixon. They're just like Nixon. They never give it up, right? Nixon's walking on the beach with the wingtips, thinking great thoughts. Never count them out because they have no shame. It's like Nixon.
No,
he's going to keep coming back.
Bill Clinton was like studying the Constitution, trying to find a way. You know, is there any way? Is there any way? You know, and they're obsessed.
No. When first off, when he's looking out there and they're talking about Pete Buttigieg and Pritzker, come on, and the guy down in nobody Cooper, I think it is down in North Carolina.
Cooper,
come on,
Rory
these
Cooper.
guys, these folks are not right. They're still looking at Beto. He's down 10 points to Abbott.
Not FDR.
That's a pure Trump line. Not exactly FDR. She's not exactly Thatcher. Boris, give your social media. We got to bounce. We got to bounce.
About it.
Give your
not Indira Gandhi. BorisCP.com is the website. Sign up right now. BorisCP.com. Hot on Getter at BorisCP. Hot on Twitter sometimes at BorisCP. Always hot on Truth Social at Boris. Hottest on the gram, Boris_Epshteyn. Stay strong. God bless. It's an honor, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're going to be back. It's going to be on fire. We got so much going on. Plus, this weekend, a very, very special, we got Claire Dooley, an amazing filmmaker, in the war room with her new film, In Peace in War. It's about the trucker convoy. It is something you've got to see to believe. It'll blow you away. And she is one of the rising conservative voices out there. Claire Dooley with us on Saturday morning. We're going to show her film. See you tomorrow morning at 10.